Have you entered another dimension, or are you just dealing with another dimension? Targeted individuals, they have to deal with some pretty freaky stuff. I've talked about before that if you try to explain this to other people, you're asking for trouble. You're either going to end up in that circular conversation that's going to go nowhere, that's usually going to bring a lot of accusations your way, or people are just going to, secretly think you're crazy and agree with you because they're scared that you're nuts. It's not normal for people to be stalked and harassed. It's not normal for people to break into your house, rearrange your furniture, to change the French salad dressing from the Thousand Island. And there's no way that you could, convince normal people of what you're dealing with. And, just keeping your mouth shut and trying to look normal becomes an art form for targeted individuals. What do you tell people when they, inquire about the cameras that you have? Well, you can't tell them that you're, Sally, the targeted individual, and you're being hunted down possibly by a cult or the government or whatever. It's just not good. And then you got people who are cantankerous that are in the neighborhood. They might be bored, and now they're gonna mess with you, and you don't know. You might get a false positive, and it's freaky being a target individual, and you are literally dealing with another dimension. I've talked about before that. Whether you're dealing with the government or whether you're dealing with, a cult or a secret society or just a group of people or whatever, you are dealing with the spiritual dimension at the root. And there's a lot of people out there that, I've heard them, life is just, it's just boring. I wish it was, like Lord of the Rings or something, Well, it is really. And if you get into, like Michael Heiser's work, where he, gets into the biblical information and, kind of interprets that from where people would have understood it, from the place that they were when it was written. And you got some pretty cool stuff that I don't think people even know about, like the Battle of Armageddon is not really the Battle of Armageddon, it's Hermageddon, and it's not the Valley of Megiddo, it's Hermageddo, a completely different place. It's the Mount, and stuff like that gets pretty interesting. I would suggest that you guys get into that, and that the world is literally being run right now by principalities and powers, spiritual beings that we don't even know about. It's literally like a movie. But the problem is that most people are blind to that. I think it's 2 Corinthians 4 talks about how people have been blinded, literally, to these things. And just like with people that experience group harassment, a lot of people don't know about that. The majority of the world, is going to look at that and just think it's nuts. It's like the chemtrails. Everybody used to laugh about that. Oh, yeah, the chemtrails. And then they found out it was real. Literally. People had barium in their blood, radioactive, carcinogenic material, and other things. They checked the wells and all that stuff. They tried to figure out where it was coming from. The government finally had to admit it. It was all fun and games until that happened. And there's a lot of stuff out there. Now we've got the Havana syndrome. And, I've looked at the comments from people when there's a news broadcast or whatever, a little, smidget about the Havana syndrome, and people are in the comments, they're like, what is it? Is it from like a little germ or something? And they don't know what it is, literally. And a lot of people aren't talking about it because they don't want to be labeled as nuts, but it's coming out in the news, and it has to do with how people are, getting attacked with energy weapons, directed energy weapons. It's coming to the mainstream. So if you guys out there that have experienced those types of attacks are wondering if people are ever going to find out, they know. And it is coming to the forefront, literally. Who knows what's going to happen with it? But I've heard it in the news now. Oh gosh, probably 5 times within the last 2 weeks. And it wasn't just me looking through, and doing a search. It was literally on the radio. So who knows how far this is going to go. People are attacked right on the White House by this stuff. And of course, there's the people that are trying to write it off and saying, oh, it's just a mental disease. And, yeah, check into that. That's going to be popping around. Who knows? Hopefully it'll come full disclosure to the point where they're not going to just, blame it on a bunch of, Russians or something. Because that's usually what they do. It's people in Russia or in China. So, and we're dealing with a scenario right now where, this whole thing could literally turn into, it's already a Cold War in my opinion. But who knows how far it's going to go. You've had China and Russia get together and do military exercises going back to, I think, 2015. And there's been rumors that, our Navy has been surpassed, but who knows what we've got? I don't know. But yeah, there's, the things that are out there that are starting to, kind of get in there. And then you got to remember that when this whole crisis started, the lockdown, it was almost like the rest of the world was just kind of bebopping along, and then, it was like, welcome to your world. The targeted individual who's isolated and, socially deprived and, stressed out, all those things, all the deprivations. And, people didn't deal with it very well at all. Suicides, shot up, domestic abuse, drug abuse, all kinds of things happened. And it was, kind of a window into, how other people deal with the stuff that targeted individuals deal with on a regular basis. I always used to wonder that. It was interesting to see it. And I wasn't glad about it. It was just interesting. And targeted individuals deal with that every day. A lot of people have experienced harassment to the extent where they're afraid to leave their house. They're afraid somebody's going to break in. They're afraid that they're going to be attacked. That, it's just to the point where they can't deal with it. Especially, new targeted individuals. They don't know what's going on. And some of them are being covertly drugged, and that just adds to the effect where they're rabbit holing. They don't even know what they're going to do. They don't know if people are going to hurt them. They don't know if they're going to be attacked and driven somewhere and put in a warehouse or something like that. I've heard people talk about that they're afraid that they're going to, be abducted literally or something. And you can't blame them. Some of that street theater gets pretty aggressive. It just does. People vent on targeted individuals. A lot of times they are that scapegoat and that social dynamic. People are, constantly taking out their aggression on targeted individuals. And now we have a lot more stress. We've got the jab. A lot of people are worried about their employment. There's a lady that actually temporarily lost custody of her child over this thing. We've got the Afghanistan debacle. As I was driving home from work, there were people out on the corners in my city with signs saying F Biden. We came pretty close to a civil war in a lot of people's opinion just with the election, and things aren't going too well, you know. They're just not. You know, and getting back to, you know, how people dealt with, you know, the crisis, the lockdown, people are different than they used to be. There's a lot of people that, you know, that whole thing changed. I used to go to their house and deliver them food before, and they're different now. You know, after 4 to 6 months in that, you know, they just look different. They stop shaving. They're answering the door in their pajamas. You know, they're baked. You know, you could smell the weed as soon as you got up to the house, and they still got the crumbs on their face from the food that you delivered for breakfast. And they just looked out of it, man. And some of them, you know, they're still doing it. They got lazy. They're fat. They just, I don't know. And, you know, some of them went on some pretty good drunks. A lot of people went on the binge drunk, you know, just leave it by the door. You know, I had one guy threaten to, you know, blow my tires up with a shotgun. Said he was going to let the air out of my tires with a 12 gauge. Why, you ask? Well, he's just stressed out. And I wasn't even delivering food to that guy. He was the person that lived in the basement apartment. You know, people are just on edge. And there was a car fire right across from the house, probably about a month before that. Gee, I wonder what happened there, you know. Just burnt to the ground, you know. Yeah. So people, they don't handle stress very well. And that's bad news for people who are targeted individuals, especially for workplace harassment. I've noticed that when things would get, you know, kind of busy or stressful, that, you know, the scapegoat would get a little bit of extra flack. It's like that, you know, wherever you are. And, you know, with all the stuff that's going on, who knows what's going to happen? If the world gets plunged into some type of, you know, crisis, you know, because of all the things that have happened, there was people talking about how the perfect storm was brewing way before any of the COVID stuff started. There was, you know, the solar minimum, maximum. There was all kinds of different things going on with the weather. People were predicting, you know, different types of food shortages and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, the same thing was, you know, mentioned by a lot of people, that all we need is one thing to set this off. And we've got way more than that. Now we've got a financial thing. A lot of people lost their line of credit, like with Wells Fargo, or people are experiencing persecution at their job for the jab. Inflation is a pretty hot topic. What's going to happen within the next couple of years with that? We had a lot of fires. There's a lot of things brewing, and who knows what's going to happen. The good news is targeted individuals are prepared for tough times. Not that you should try to find a whole lot of meaning in the garbage that's coming at you. You need to process it correctly. Most of the stimuli that you're dealing with is hijacked. It's illegitimate. And, you know, you need to look at it that way. Try not to get too excited about anything and have realistic expectations. If you've been in the TI zone as long as I have, you'd know that, you know, you just got to try to forget, try to distract your mind, pray, and hope for the best. Guys, be good to yourselves. Be safe.